Welcome to the Medical Muse podcast. Discover the humanistic aspects of physicians and scientists as they describe their career paths and any advice they have for current medical students. Each episode, we interview a new guest and discuss the future of the field. This is the Medical Muse.
Hey everyone, we have Dr. Joseph De Gaetano here with us today. Dr. De Gaetano is a professor of family medicine. He serves on faculty for the Broward Health Family Medicine Residency program, and he has been a faculty member at NSU KPCOM for 22 years. Thank you for joining us today.
Oh, you're welcome, guys. Glad to be here.
All right. Hi, Dr. De Gaetano. Good to see you. So I guess let's start. Can you tell us just a little bit about yourself, a little bit about who you are?
Sure. Well, I'm from Long Island, New York originally, and I went to what was then the New York College of Osteopathic Medicine. Now it's the New York Institute of Technology College of Osteopathic Medicine. My wife and I actually did a 7-year BSDO program. So we were accepted out of high school into our undergraduate and then completed our undergraduate degree in 3 years. And then were, accepted directly out of high school into medical school. So we did that type of a combined program.
Oh, wow.
I had a military scholarship in medical school, something called a health professions scholarship. And so I did my residency training in the United States Army at Dwight David Eisenhower Army Medical Center, which is located at Fort Gordon, Georgia, which is just outside of Augusta, Georgia, where the Masters is played. And so after residency, of course, I had to do payback because of my military scholarship. And so I served a total of 12 years in the military, in the Army. And so I served on 2 different residency programs in the Army after graduating from residency, both at my alma mater and also at another program at William Beaumont Army Medical Center, which is in El Paso, Texas, which is just north of Juarez, which right across the border from northern Mexico, Fort Bliss, Texas. Then after completing my service in the Army, I decided that I wanted to go where there was no snow. And so having grown up in cold weather, and so my wife and I decided that we both have been academic our entire careers. I've only trained medical students and residents my entire career, which is almost 30 years now. And so we decided we wanted to come to Florida because love the weather, it never snows, and continue to do what we do, which is train medical students and residents. And that's why I'm here at Nova Southeastern University. And I've been here now almost 22 years. After getting out of the military. So that is sort of my life in a nutshell.
That's interesting. So did you meet your wife in medical school in that program you're talking about, or did you know her beforehand?
I met my wife when we were 17 years old in college. So we started the BSDO program together. She was the first person I met actually starting that program. So we have been through everything together. Our undergrad, medical school, we both have master's degrees, and she's followed me, really everywhere, especially when I was in the Army. So we met when we were very, very young.
That's interesting. So your program was 7 years, you said. Was there a distinct difference of when your bachelor's degree stopped and your medical school started, or was it kind of intertwined?
No, there was a distinct stop and start. So we did 4 years of undergraduate curriculum in 3 years. We went all year round. So we went, through the summers and did, again, in terms of total number of credits, what a bachelor's degree requires in a 3-year period of time. So we made the decision to pursue medicine right out of high school. And it's not an easy decision to do that, but it was something that we felt was appropriate for us. We wanted to, get where we wanted to go, perhaps a little quicker than others, and that was the reason why we chose to do this.
Yeah, I'm about a decade behind you, so maybe more than that, a decade and a half.
So I graduated medical school when I was 24.
All right.
Wow.
Well, that's amazing. What went into the decision about you wanting to get into medicine in the first place?
Well, truth is in truth, this is the only thing I've ever thought about doing. What made me decide was my father had my father's a pharmacist. So something that's very interesting that a lot of people don't realize is that MD schools back in the day would not take people that had done other professions. So many pharmacists went on to become physicians, but they could not go to an MD school. They had to go to an osteopathic medical school because DO schools very much looked for people that had other professions before coming to medical school. So many of my father's friends were pharmacists before they became DOs. And that's how I learned about the profession. And in fact, I shadowed one of his classmates, multiple summers when I was in high school, who had gone on to osteopathic medical school after being a pharmacist. So interestingly, my wife's father is a DO, but he went to the same pharmacy school that my father went to. They both were pharmacists before my father, of course, didn't go to medical school, but my father-in-law did. And similarly, my wife's uncle also was a pharmacist before he went to medical school, also went to the same pharmacy school. So many of the leaders in the profession were pharmacists before they became DOs. So our former dean, Dr. Silvani, he was a pharmacist before he became an osteopathic physician. And again, the reason why that is because MD schools, back then, we're talking many years ago, would not take somebody that had another profession. So many DOs were pharmacists before they became osteopathic physicians. And that's how I became knowledgeable about the profession.
Interesting.
So what got you interested in family medicine in particular?
Well, many things. When you guys choose a specialty that you want to be, there's going to be a lot of factors that go into that decision. Hopefully, one of the factors is that you're going to pick a profession or a discipline that you enjoy. So, first and foremost, what I enjoy about family medicine is the diversity of what we do. As we say, womb to tomb, cradle to grave. In other words, we take care of the full spectrum. When I was in the military, I would take care of a lady who, for her prenatal care, I would deliver her baby. I would take care of her baby in the nursery, then take care of that baby as they grew into a child, adolescent, adult, and then obviously a senior citizen. So I enjoyed the spectrum and I enjoyed the diversity. Really, anything can, in terms of medical problems, anything can walk into our office at any time. And that's, that's academically, scientifically challenging, which I enjoy very, very much. Staying on top of, staying abreast of the breadth of what we do in family medicine, I have always found to be very, very challenging. But I will share with you that there's many other reasons why I chose to become a family physician. So with my military scholarship, several things. One, the same specialties that were very competitive when I was a student are the same for you guys today. So in other words, dermatology, radiology, orthopedic surgery, those were very competitive back then as they are now. So one of the challenges was if I had pursued something like ophthalmology, which is very competitive, I would not have been able to go into my residency right away in the military. I would have had to have done an internship, and then I would have had to have gone out as what's called a general medical officer for at least 2 years before I could come back and finish my residency. So that would mean that I would have been separated from my wife for 2 years, which only, to share, because this is, I hope, helpful to others, a decision that every one of you has to make is what are going to be the parameters that guide your decision as to what specialty you're going to pick. So one of the factors for my wife and I was that we wanted to be together. Imagine that. And so that was not an option for me. I was not willing to go do that, and that would have been the case if I had wanted to do orthopedics, if I had wanted to do dermatology. And, openly, both of us were good students. We were good students. I could have done those things. However, I was not willing to be separated for that period of time. Another reason why I chose family medicine was because when we were applying for residency, obviously I was in the military match and my wife was in the civilian match at the time. And so again, wanting to be together, if we had picked very, very competitive specialties like ophthalmology and derm, there was no way we were going to be able to be together. So having been good students, we picked disciplines that perhaps were not as competitive more so that geographically we could be together. And so that's why I also picked family medicine, because I had more say, if you will, in where I would go geographically for my residency. And then lastly, another reason why I chose family medicine was because when you have a military scholarship, if your residency training is longer than the amount of time you owe back to the federal government, you incur that additional time. And so if I had done general surgery, which is a 5-year residency, my minimum active duty commitment back to the government would have been at least 5 years after residency. So that would have meant 10 years, serving active duty in the military. So again, my wife worked harder than I did in medical school. And so for her to have to follow me for all that time was not fair. So I wanted to pick something that I could be done in a reasonable amount of time so we could leave the military and then she could pursue her career. So my point in all of that conversation is that I wish upon all of you the ability to be whatever specialty you want to be, but many factors are going to go into that decision, right? One is hopefully the enjoyment of that specialty, but also you're going to have to be very open-eyed about your academics. What are your board scores? Where do you sit in your class in terms of your GPA? But then also life factors are going to go into that. If your family is from, let's say, Tampa, and you want to be closer to your family, that will be perhaps a factor that will drive geographically where you apply for residency, which will limit perhaps what specialties you decide to go into. So I hope that sheds some light that it's a complicated decision in terms of what specialty you want to be. It's not just the love of the specialty, it's academics, it's your family, geography, etc. Those are all things you're going to have to factor in. All of those played a huge role in why I chose family medicine. But in the end, I still very much enjoy the specialty. Again, because on any given day, I can see something I've never seen before, and it keeps me academically, scientifically challenged every day. That was a long answer.
That was really good. That was a really, really good answer. And just going back to the military experience, were there any unique takeaways from the military that you thought enhanced your career as a physician, and maybe even family medicine, to be more specific?
Oh, absolutely. So first and foremost, my greatest role models and how I try to role model truthfully with you guys, which, Daniel has had the great fortune of experiencing, come from how the folks who trained me were. To this day, the smartest physician that I have ever known was my residency program director in the military. He truthfully could run circles around any specialist in whatever discipline on a moment's notice on any disease topic. He was fully dedicated and committed to training us. He used to, when we were on call, which, nowadays there are work hour rules, we were on call at least every third, if not every other night, 36 hours straight in the hospital. Our attendings would stay in the hospital with us. He would wake us up at 2 o'clock in the morning if we weren't taking care of a patient to give us a lecture, because he felt that this was our time to learn. And so he did not want to waste that opportunity. So he was truly dynamic in how much energy he brought to the academic process to teach. But similarly, many of my other faculty in residency were dynamic, super dynamic people who were there for the right reasons, to want to help us to be the best that we could be. So in how I interact with you guys, and of course, importantly, our residents, comes very much from that experience and from that role modeling. I take that till today very much to heart in terms of the energy that they had for us. Really good people, very good family people, very, very dedicated to their craft.
I have a question about that.
Sure.
So whether it be from the medicine side of the military, or just from, training to be a soldier, or any part of your experience in the military, did you find different leadership styles that, wow, that way really works, versus others who you're like, this guy makes me do what I have to do, but I could maybe do this a little bit better to build camaraderie between my team or something?
Right. No, absolutely. Really, to answer that question, Daniel, both in the military, but also in my time, since in my civilian life, great leaders, okay, several things, okay, great leaders, first off, they lead from the front. What that means is that there's no task or job that they are not willing to do themselves that their subordinates do. There's no requirement, there is no rule, there is no philosophy that they themselves are not willing to abide by, live by, and adhere to, that their subordinates must adhere to. Does that kind of make sense? That is a great leader. Number two, a great leader sweats the details. The devil is in the details, okay? I encourage you guys and anyone who ever sees this podcast to read the biography of General Colin Powell. I don't know if you know who that is. However, he was the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Secretary of State of the United States of America, highest ranking military official in his time. Served in Vietnam, multiple combat tours, rose from the ranks of a second lieutenant, not from West Point, from ROTC, from the Bronx, New York, to becoming a four-star general and the Secretary of State of the United States, and a potential presidential candidate. His mantra was, you sweat the details. And what that means is that you must, as a leader, sweat the details. You must look at how any order you give or any directive you give affects the smallest portion of those in whom that order is given. Mm-hmm. And when you do that and you think through those details, it makes the rollout of whatever that project is or directive is so much smoother. So that's something that I have always followed as well in my leadership style. And then lastly is humility. The greatest leaders are humble. They know that they can't know everything about whatever they're in charge of. And so you need to rely upon those who have expertise in different components of whatever the organization is to guide you, and be willing to receive feedback that may not be favorable to your perspective, but is favorable to the overall outcome for everyone in the organization. That's a very difficult skill to train. I would argue it cannot be trained. I would argue it's genetically inborn. And the greatest leaders have that capability. It's humility. And we're not seeing a lot of that currently in our government, which I'll leave that political statement there, okay? But humility, sweat the details, lead from the front. Those are the 3 points.
Thank you for sharing that. That was a really great answer.
Sure.
So adding a little bit more onto just the military experience. So what would you advise for students who may be interested in pursuing military medicine, or even going down the path that you did in terms of giving back time?
Sure.
And
so, go ahead, Daniel.
At what point in your journey did you decide that the military was going to be your route as well?
Well, I had to commit to the scholarship. So again, we did our undergrad in 3 years. So I had to commit to the scholarship in the 3rd year of our undergraduate program. And again, just being very open and honest, many factors went into that. Of course, finances were a big factor. Remember, I graduated medical school with no debt because, thanks to the great taxpayers of our fine nation, they paid for my training. Similarly, I got paid while in medical school. So the truth is I have never not had a job since I was 12. Because I started working when I was 12 years old, believe it or not. And I've always gotten paid. Now, with that said, to those that might be interested, you got to go into it eyes wide open. So you either owe money or you owe time. All right. So I owed time. You guys owe a lot of money. All right. So if any student that chooses the military scholarship pathway, they have to understand, and this is how I've always counseled students that choose this pathway, that they are going to be officers in either the United States Army, Navy, Air Force, or Marine Corps. They are going to be expected to do everything that an officer in those branches of service is required to do. Just because you're a physician doesn't mean you're let, quote, off the hook, all right? So what does that mean? Number one is physical fitness, okay? So you guys know that you're studying, and I do hope you're exercising. I very much hope you're exercising, because the truth is that I was a little bit of a mess in my first 2 years of medical school, but I had to turn that around pretty quickly, because when I started my 3rd year of medical school, and I had to go on rotations in the Army, they do a physical fitness test on you immediately. So physicians have to maintain physical fitness. Number two, you have to do everything that any soldier, sailor, or airman does. That means be proficient in firing a weapon, being prepared to be gassed, all right, and wearing something called MOP gear, which is gear that protects you if you're gassed or are exposed to a nuclear attack. And again, what we call basic soldiering skills, all of those skills. Number three is, and especially given our world climate, you have to be prepared to be deployed somewhere in a danger zone at a moment's notice, potentially for many, many months. So to give an example, so I have 2 brothers who are osteopathic physicians. All 3 of us did the military. We were all in the Army. My youngest brother was in the Second Gulf War, so he's an internist. Immediately upon graduation from residency, he was sent to Iraq for 18 months. And as a primary care provider, you're not hanging out in a field hospital, miles away. You're in what's called the battalion aid station, directly attached to the infantry unit that he went to war with. So he was with the 4th Mechanized Infantry Division in a town called Bakuba, north of Baghdad. And he was right there with his soldiers, taking care of them, and was part of many difficult, horrific events, as you can allow your imagination to imagine. So any medical student who chooses the scholarship, they have to go in eyes wide open. They're going to be officers in the military, fully willing to accept that responsibility and all that comes with that. And also the fact that you are rapidly deployable to a combat situation anywhere in the world as the government deems necessary. So that's stressful, but owing hundreds of thousands of dollars is stressful. So you have to make your choice, right? What is the lesser evil? And so that's what I guide them and tell them about.
Okay. Before we move on to another topic real quick, I was wondering, with the limited residency options whenever you were going through the military, is it still like that, do you know, or has it changed a little bit?
Well, it's actually, yeah, the options have actually even further diminished, because my understanding, and I haven't truthfully kept fully in touch with this, but the Air Force and the Navy have really cut back their number of residency positions. So many of your classmates who have the scholarship are going to get what is called deferred, which means that they are going to be told, go do a civilian residency and then you'll come into the military. So something that you guys are not going to be aware of is that your classmates that have the scholarship, they have to go after a civilian residency as aggressively as they go after a military residency. And the reason for that is because they may be deferred. And then if they haven't gone after a civilian residency, they're going to be out of luck. So you guys will be going after, if you will, one set of residencies. The military students have to go after two different sets of residency programs.
Okay. Are the military residencies strictly allopath, or are there are there both? I know now it's one program, but at a time were they ever separated, or?
Right. So no, they always have been ACGME only, if you will, ACGME accredited. However, in truth, the military residencies have been the most non-biased residencies in the country. So at any given time, a quarter of the physicians on active duty in the military are DOs. Our profession has a huge, huge history of serving the military. And so there is no bias, there is no stigma in the military in terms of DOs applying for whatever specialty that they want to go for. In fact, one of the Surgeon Generals of the United States Army was a DO. That's the top ranking physician in the Army. And so each branch has a Surgeon General, much like you hear about the Surgeon General that you see on CNN. Every branch of the military has a Surgeon General. So there's actually 4 Surgeon Generals. And so in fact, the DO rose to that rank, which is a 3-star general. That's the highest ranking physician in the military. So even though the programs have always been ACGME accredited, they've always been very receptive of osteopathic graduates, and osteopathic graduates have always had equal parity with their MD colleagues, not only for residency, but also for promotion and leadership in the military.
Interesting. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Dr. De Gaetano, so where did you mention where you had done your family medicine residency?
So again, I did my residency at Eisenhower Army Medical Center, which is Fort Gordon, Georgia, which is just outside of Augusta, Georgia.
Got it.
Right.
And after you did your residency and you started practicing, what was your favorite aspect of family medicine, and when did you go into teaching after that?
Sure. Well, so just to answer in 2 parts, I went into teaching right away. They actually kept me on in the residency program right away as faculty. So I've always been teaching, ever since graduating medical school, because as residents, you guys will see when you're residents, you're going to teach a lot. In fact, you may do more of the teaching than some of the attendings with the medical students you're going to work with one day. And you'll see that also when you're 3rd-year students, how much the residents do a lot of the teaching with you. What I've always enjoyed about, again, family medicine is the breadth of what we do. So unfortunately, coming to NSU many years ago, I had to give up a lot of what I used to do. So we used to do, for example, a lot of obstetrics as family doctors in the military. I've delivered well over 1,000 babies, and I miss that. I very much enjoyed doing labor and delivery and prenatal care. Openly, we don't do a lot of pediatrics currently, in our practice at NSU, and I miss that. We used to do, well baby checks, and I was doing circumcisions and all of that stuff. And then the third thing that I miss is we used to do a ton of primary care procedures in the military, everything from joint injections to skin procedures to flexible sigmoidoscopy, rhinoscopy, colposcopy, and on and on and on. And unfortunately, in our current practice at NSU, that's not something that we're as much able to do. So I gave up a lot of that coming to NSU many years ago.
As a physician and teacher at NSU, are you required to work in their clinic, or could you be a professor and work, like, say, in your own practice?
So, okay, so if you are a full-time faculty member at NSU as a physician, right, as a DO or an MD, no, you cannot work in your own practice. You are full-time NSU. That's what we call a conflict of interest.
Okay.
Now, not every DO or MD, however, that works with us remains clinical, right? They can choose to be, they can choose to do research. They could be purely administrative, right? Or academic, meaning solely teaching. However, when I came to NSU, I did it all. And that's not, that's just what I wanted to do. So I was clinical. I was highly, highly administrative. And I had done research as well, albeit that's never been the thrust of what I've done. My biggest thing was clinical teaching and administrative. And then much like I've done with you, Daniel, in PCM, I enjoy clinically oriented teaching of our first and second year students. Openly, it's not my greatest pleasure to give you a lecture in front of 250 of you. That's not where I don't dislike it, but my greatest enjoyment is to have you in a small group and work through clinical scenarios, much like we do in PCM.
Right. You can build relationships too and have fun conversations, and we learn a lot that way as well.
Yeah, because you really, in my opinion, you retain so much more in that type of an environment where I'm making you think through the case. Mm-hmm. And when you become a third year student, that's what you're going to do every day, right? You're going to see live patients and we're going to work through those cases together. So that type of teaching is really my favorite. That's my favorite thing to do.
How often do residents rotate through your program right now?
Every day. Every day. Our clinic here in Davie is what we call the continuity of care clinic for the Broward Health Medical Center Family Medicine Residency. So it's where they come to learn their ambulatory skills, their outpatient skills. And so we have literally, as I'm talking to you guys right now, we have 5 residents that are in our clinic working with other attendings, and we have 3 third-year medical students. So every day we work with medical students and residents. That's our job. That's what we're there to do.
So let's say my future holds a spot in that residency. How long would I be working in that clinic?
If you do family medicine is a 3-year residency. You will be working with us for 3 years.
Okay, so there's nothing in the hospital or anything?
Oh, no, of course. No, you'll be, so much like when you're a third-year medical student, residents change rotations every month, every block. Okay. So when you are a resident, regardless of what specialty you go into, just as a third-year medical student does, every month you're going to change what rotation you're on. So of course, so our residents rotate on surgery and OBGYN and psychiatry, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So when they're not in the clinic every day, they're in the clinic, maybe 2, depending upon what year they are, first, second, third year resident. They may only be in the clinic a half a day a week or upwards of 2 days or 3 days a week. Again, depending upon what year they are. Now, when they're not in the clinic, they're on those other rotations learning those disciplines.
And adding on to that, what types of qualities are you looking for in students who are applying to residency programs?
Sure. Well, overarchingly, every residency is looking for enthusiasm, work ethic, good interpersonal skills, right? It would be a lie to say otherwise, guys. For the most part, residency program directors, they have to like you, right? That's very, very important. So we don't expect you to be a family doctor when you start. We expect you to be a just graduated, 4th-year medical student who has every energy, every ambition, right, to be the best that you can be. So what I'm looking for every day in you guys is that energy, right? That energy to grow your skills, your knowledge, everything we do, your interpersonal skills with patients, your understanding of how to use an EMR, your understanding of how medicine is practiced logistically, right, based upon insurances and such. That's what we're really, really looking for. Now, obviously certain disciplines are looking for other things, right? So if you say you want to be a general surgeon, well, you better be pretty good with your hands, right? You better not be a klutz when you go into the OR. So that's something that they're going to be looking for. And then, openly, guys, and obviously we're transitioning into this conversation, applying for and getting into residency is probably the most difficult, most competitive for you guys than it's ever been in all the centuries that we have been training physicians. So obviously your academics is going to be very important. I wish I could say otherwise, but it's just the reality. What your board scores are, what your GPA is going to be very important, certainly for the more competitive specialties, right? So, eyes wide open. Remember I said that you want to have eyes wide open. Understand that the super competitive disciplines like ophthalmology, derm, et cetera, orthopedics, they won't even let you do an elective with them or certainly get an interview with them if you don't have a certain board score. Anyone who tells you otherwise is not giving you good information. That is a reality. So that's why, you have to look in the mirror and know who you are. Understand, guys, and I know, Daniel, you have a question, but let's just take our family medicine residency at Broward, right? For this academic year, for 5 intern positions, the program director already has well over 1,000 applicants. So why is that? Because every DO student can apply, every graduating DO student. Oh, by the way, every graduating MD student in the country can apply. Oh, by the way, every offshore student can apply. And oh, by the way, international physicians who have practiced in their specialties for decades can apply because they want to come to the United States to practice medicine. We currently have a 3rd-year resident who was a full-fledged OBGYN in her home country and decided that she wanted to come with her family to the United States and redid it all, redid her residency, okay? So understand that these people are super competitive. They've been practicing for years, right? So that's not to scare you. That's a reality statement, okay? So that's what I'm talking about when it comes to the competitiveness and, understanding who you are, right? Who you are for the different disciplines you're interested in.
That's interesting.
That being said, in terms of the merger, could you comment on that at all, and also like whether you see that as a big, I guess, I know you mentioned how competitive it is for us right now, but in terms of just being, is that an overall positive for all of us?
Okay, so very important question, Raj. So, all right, so first let me say to you that I was actively involved in the merger. All right, I'm going to change that terminology for you in a second, okay? But let's use that terminology, all right? I was intimately involved for NSU Com at the time, now KP Com, with the entire merger, all right? My first statement to you is that a merger, the term merger means a symbiotic intermingling of 2 former corporations. That is not what happened. What happened is a takeover. All right, I want you to understand that. Now, I know you'll be broadcasting this. This is my opinion. This is my opinion alone. Obviously, others will give you a different opinion, but that's okay because you're talking to me today. All right. So remember, the ACGME took over our osteopathically accredited programs. All right. Now, understand that osteopathic discrimination is alive and well. Anyone who tells you otherwise is not giving you good information. Again, my opinion, my statement. What I mean to say to you about that is that as an osteopathic physician, as a graduate, if you want to go to the University of Miami orthopedic residency program, that's never going to happen. Hate to tell you that, but it's never going to happen. An osteopathic physician has never trained in a surgical specialty. Let me give you an exception. One exception, there was a DO that did OBGYN at UM, but a DO can't even get an interview or do an elective at UM Jackson for a surgical specialty, okay? That type of discrimination continues throughout the country, just the way it is, guys. That doesn't mean there aren't DOs who haven't done ACGME orthopedic residencies at other locations. There certainly have been, but there remain, notably in the surgical specialties, overt discrimination against DOs at certain institutions, okay? So now with that said, understand with the takeover, Broward Health Medical Center runs an orthopedic surgical residency, which used to be only osteopathically accredited, which means the only graduates that could go to that program were DOs. That program is now ACGME accredited. And ortho, being as competitive as it is going to have applicants from Harvard and Yale, Stanford. That doesn't mean they're better students than you guys. Please, they are not better students than you guys. But understand there is something called branding. Okay, guys, you understand what branding is? If you are a Lexus and you use that and you compare it to a Kia, people are going to assume the Lexus is better because it has the name Lexus on it, okay? So that means these students from Harvard and Yale and Stanford are going to get looked at because it's impressive for the program. So my point is that for certain disciplines, notably the more competitive disciplines, the merger actually has diminished opportunities for our students that are interested in those disciplines. Okay, so orthopedic surgery, dermatology, radiology, ENT, the competitive disciplines, all right? But also understand, when I just told you that the Broward Health Family Medicine Residency has 1,000 applicants, when that program was only osteopathically accredited, we did not have 1,000 applicants, right? Because only DO students could apply. So even what we traditionally call the lesser competitive specialties, you know, they have become even more competitive for you guys. Again, because they've been opened up to this vast array of people that can apply. Does that kind of make sense? So you can tell that I was not a huge fan of the takeover. My opinion was that it was detrimental to our students, and I voiced that opinion. But it is what it is. You know, that's done. And so you guys now have to navigate what is, which is the fact that every program is ACGME accredited. Every discipline will have literally thousands of applicants for the positions that they offer, which was not the case a few years ago for what were the purely osteopathic programs. But what I want to say before I stop stressing you out is don't worry about that, okay? Your job and your classmates' job is to be the best student you can be. That's all you can do, okay? And it will all fall into place for you, all right? Don't worry about that. You just have to be realistic about who you are, all right? If you're going to apply for orthopedic surgery, you have to have a backup, okay? Residency, discipline that you will be very willing to do and be very happy doing if you don't get ortho. So remember, ophthalmology is not a backup for orthopedic surgery, okay? A backup is family medicine, internal medicine, right? Pediatrics, that's what I'm saying. And if you don't get ortho, the world is not over, all right? You're going to be happy doing that other discipline, mostly because you owe a lot of money. And you better be happy because no profession is going to allow you to make enough money to pay those loans off, all right? So that's hard, that's tough love that I'm giving you, all right? Does that make sense? Do you understand what I'm trying to say? That's a very important point. And you know, many of your classmates have come to school. Maybe you guys have a certain specialty you feel like you've always wanted to do. But you know, I'm here to tell you, for optho, if you're not, you know, top 5 of the class with rockstar USMLE board scores, listen to what I'm telling you, USMLE board scores, you're not even going to be able to get an elective to showcase yourself at the programs you're interested in. And oh, by the way, for those disciplines, you better have some scholarly activity, notably research, minimally a poster or 2 under your belt, because they're not going to look at you either. It's just a reality statement.
I have a question for you.
Sure.
When you guys are looking for your residents, Are you more likely to offer an interview to someone that you've worked with as a student, like a medical student, or?
Yes, so there is nothing better than having the ability to showcase yourself and having done a wonderful, wonderful job, right? But understand that can work against you, right? If you kind of messed up, that's going to work against you. But we very much appreciate trying to take students that we know. So if we've had one of you on rotation with us, and we know you, right? We intimately know you because we've worked with you for a month. That is in your favor. That is totally, totally in your favor. So that's why, as fourth year students, as much as you can, you want to try to rotate at programs that you think you want to apply to.
Mhm. Also, a comment from before, when you were explaining the resident who was a OBGYN student, or attending, yes, in another country. That's kind of interesting because then you get to also learn a little bit from that person, even as the attending physician, but you're also probably in a profession where you're constantly learning from people because they're surrounded by you all the time anyways, but that's a good opportunity.
Oh yeah, no, my residents, I mean, you guys, I mean, I learned so much from you guys. I mean, every day we're all learning. It's part of why I chose this pathway, because I very much enjoy the constant learning. It's what motivates me. I learn as much from you guys as I hope you learn from me. So yes, do I learn from our students and residents every day? Absolutely, absolutely, positively. So yes, she brings a lot of experience with her from her background, no question.
What were there any specific failures in general that taught you valuable lessons? And this doesn't have to pertain to medicine, it could be anything. And then follow up to that, were there any in medicine that were very, very valuable as well?
Sure. So, all of us who have done this for long enough, have had our ups and our downs. That's how life is, right, guys? Life is not, it's not this flat plateau. It doesn't go up like that all the time. It goes like this, right? We got hills and valleys, right? And what makes you stronger is experience, right? I have been doing this, I'm just older than you guys, right? So you experience so many different things as you get older that you learn how to cope and deal with anything that comes your way only because you've experienced it before. So, practicing medicine is not for the weak at heart, as I like to say. Okay, it's a challenging profession. It will challenge you for the rest of your life, whether that be in terms of your knowledge, difficult patients, the finances that go into practicing medicine, the constraints on your life, time-wise, right, your family. But that's okay, because it's a very, very, very rewarding profession that I still enjoy doing every day when I wake up. Very few professions do that, right? I'm sure both of you have had other jobs, right? And you can reflect upon how can you imagine doing that other job for the rest of your life? No way, right? I've had those jobs, okay? So it still remains a wonderful profession that will give you a good life as you go forward. But that doesn't mean it's not without its stressors, all right? So what are life experiences, professional experiences that have been challenging for me? Well, I would like to say to you that, I was always taught that through hard work, right? And competence and growth of one's personal skills, right? And having ticked off certain accomplishments in your life, right? That would lead to ever-growing promotion, success. What's another word? Achievement, all right? Well, guys, I'm here to tell you that that isn't the case all the time, okay? You can be a hard worker, harder than perhaps most of your colleagues. You can do all the things you think you need to do in order to achieve a goal you have set for yourself. You can go the extra mile, right? because you feel that those in a position over you will recognize that and then use that as a reason to allow you to achieve the thing you want to achieve. But I'm here to tell you, and it was a smack in the face, that doesn't always get you where you want to go because of a couple of things. One, you need an advocate. You need somebody above you who's willing to advocate for you, who looks out for you, who is interested in your growth. If you don't have that in the whatever organization you choose or whatever institution you choose to join, it's very, very hard to get to those very high milestones. You have to have an advocate. Number two, you gotta, unfortunately, even if perhaps the way things are done is against your personal philosophy or ethos, right? Your moral compass, you have to play the game. It's a game. It's the way it works, particularly at higher levels of authority, okay? I wish I could tell you otherwise, but those who play the game better succeed. They do. They absolutely do, okay? Did you ever hear the phrase, it's not what you know, it's who you know, all right? So you got to play the game. And then lastly, you need a little luck sometimes. You got to have a little luck, and you don't always have that luck. And so it isn't always about how hard you work. And that doesn't mean I don't want you guys to work as hard as you can to be the best you can be. But it isn't always about that. It isn't always about how competent you are. People are often promoted who don't necessarily have the same competence that you have. And that's because either they play the game better or they have an advocate who watches out for them. Do you understand what I'm trying to say? It's a tough life lesson. It's a tough life lesson to learn, but it's a reality, guys. It's not, this isn't like it just happens occasionally. This is how the world works. And good things happen to bad people and bad things happen to good people. It's just the way the world works. And the sooner you embrace that concept, the better off you are.
So when something happens that maybe knocks you down a little bit, do you have not like a plan, but like a mindset of exercises you might do to help you pick back up, recover, and move forward?
So yeah, I mean, first off, you have to give yourself a little grieving period because you're allowed, you know, particularly if you've worked very, very hard to achieve a certain goal and that goal just disappears on you or is unachievable. You know, you're allowed to not be happy for a little bit. You know what I'm saying? But at some point, you know, you have to move on, right? You have to find another purpose as to why you do what you do. You got to be able to get up every day, right? Now, openly, guys, and it obviously depends upon how dramatic the event is, right? But there are people that don't recover from dramatic life events. There are people who don't, who then fall into dismay and substance abuse and all kinds of negative things, right? You can probably think of perhaps celebrities, right, who are most notable, right, who have had that happen to them, right? And they just crash and burn, right? They flame out. They're like a phoenix that flames out, right? So you can't let that happen to you, right? You have to realize that this is life. It's a sad reality, but it hits you in the face like a ton of bricks. And then you got to move on, and you got to find a reason why you get up every day in a positive way. And as much as the good things shape you, the bad things shape you even more in life. Remember, the strongest person is the person who learns to overcome adversity, right? Those are the people who have the greatest inner strength. If life was all peaches and cream, right? Rainbows and unicorns, none of us would actually grow internally in terms of our strength. It's the challenges that you face in life that make you a stronger person. So that's what you have to do. You have to find another reason, you know, you have to maybe abandon that and find another reason why you do what you do every day. That may not happen though in a day, right? That could take a while. That could take years for some people. But that's how it is. That's just how it is.
I like that because I think like with my own life, I've kind of noticed that when something, you know, that didn't exactly go your way happens, you then have a choice. Oh, I could, you know, go down one path. Let's say, you know, obviously I never did this, but let's say get into drugs. This other habit leads to that habit, bad habit, you know, going down a staircase that you don't want to go to. Or you can choose to reflect, jump up, learn from it the best that you can, maybe gain a little wisdom and move forward.
You're no right, Daniel. I mean, you've seen so many celebrities, right, that have had bad things happen and then they just flame out. You don't want that to happen to you. It's easy for me to say, hard to do, but you want to try to overcome that. And that's why you also need good supports around you. Whoever those people are, whether it be your parents, your significant other, good friends, you need those people who know who you are and can push you to keep going. But the one thing I would want to say to you guys is whatever career path you take, when you start residency, let's use that as an example. It's good to have an advocate who is at a higher level of authority from where you are, whom you bond with, who can be your voice when you're not in the room to say, you know, what a great person Raj and Daniel are. Does that make sense? Someone who you can trust, that knows you, knows your work ethic, knows your skill set, knows what your moral and ethical compass is, who can advocate for you. That person is very important to your career ambitions. And unfortunately, that's not someone I've ever had in my career, to be very honest with you. And that was detrimental to me in the past.
Okay. Can you tell us a little bit about your role as a associate dean that dealt with graduate medical education?
Sure. So, okay, once upon a time in a faraway galaxy, I used to be, I actually rose to the rank of senior associate dean for our school. So there was a time that I was actually responsible for all 4 years of our curriculum to include graduate medical education for our medical school. Before I did that, though, for almost 17 years, I was in charge as associate dean of our 3rd and 4th years and all of our GME. And so it was my responsibility over those many, many years to identify quality places to provide clinical training for you guys, for our 3rd and 4th year medical students. In fact, the core campus model, which you may or may not be familiar with, I don't know if they've gone over that with you yet, but we very much try to geographically assign our students to a specific hospital and then do all of our core rotations around that facility so that students are not as burdened with travel. That model is the model I developed for our school. And so it was my job to go out, and I kind of akin myself to the Secretary of State of our country, that my job was to be the voice of our school throughout Florida, but also throughout the country, if you will, to make sure that our needs were met. It was my job to find, new rotations and maintain the rotations for our students that we currently have, and the relationships that you need to have to maintain those rotations, whether it be in huge hospitals or small physicians' offices. It was also my job to grow our affiliated residency programs. There was a time that, NSU Com had, we were up over almost 200 affiliated residency programs with over well over 1,000 residency positions that were directly affiliated with our school, notably in what was then osteopathically accredited programs. And so it was my job to maintain all of those. So that was my role. And my job was to, counsel you guys on our rotations, how to be successful in your third and fourth years. And then very importantly, to counsel you how to be successful in the residency match process. So I was very active on a state level, but also nationally with regard to the American Osteopathic Association, et cetera, to make sure that our needs as a medical school were met across the country, really. And I was, of course, responsible for the accreditation that goes along with all of that, because remember, the school has to be accredited by the American Osteopathic Association. So there are certain standards that we have to continually meet to make sure that that is happening. That was my job, to make sure that was happening. And then, of course, the curriculum that we do in each of your rotations was my responsibility. Again, that then blossomed into me being responsible for all 4 years for a period of time.
Okay, I have a question about students and how we compare. Are there any common mistakes that you see students make over and over again that maybe we can work to avoid making?
So when you ask the question, Daniel, are you being specific to like the third and fourth years, or overall, or what setting are we talking about?
I guess, sure. As we go out on our third and fourth years and as we apply to residencies?
Right, sure. Okay, so number one, all right, never be late, never miss an assignment. When I mean an assignment, be where you're supposed to be. And if you can't be where you're supposed to be because you have a flat tire, make sure the person who's looking for you knows you have the flat tire. So a common mistake that you guys make when you get out there is, remember, as first and second years, for the most part, how you craft your day is up to you, right? Especially now, because we're Zooming everything, right? You can basically roll out of bed, which some of you look like you have when I see you on Zoom. You can roll out of bed, right? Get on a Zoom and then go back to bed, right? And then, most of you don't even go on the Zoom, right? Because you don't have to be in every lecture, right? All of that changes when you become a third-year medical student. You got to understand that you're going to be working with residents and, more importantly, attendings who are in practice. You are not their primary concern. I hate to burst that bubble. Let's pop that bubble right now. You are not their primary concern. Their primary concern is the patients they're responsible for. Most of them are running their practices, right? So they're responsible for that. And they're wickedly busy people, all right? They don't care that your car didn't start. They just don't care, guys, all right? You understand? You get what I'm getting at? More importantly, if your car doesn't start and you're not where you're supposed to be at 5 o'clock in the morning, they automatically think you're a bad person. That's how it works, guys. That's how it works, okay? Students will fail rotations because they just screw up that first impression. They're not where they're supposed to be on day one, or they're late, or they start making excuses that nobody cares about, okay? They just don't care. These little things, right, that sometimes, we get wrapped around in our personal lives, these guys don't care. They just don't care. So that's my first advice. Be where you're supposed to be, know where you're supposed to be early, and be ready to rock and roll. No excuses, all right? Number two, when you become a third-year medical student, medicine is practiced 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Some of you are going to have to work, oh my God, on Christmas and New Year's and Easter and Hanukkah and Passover and any other holiday you want to think about. This is called medicine, guys, right? When you're on internal medicine at Broward Health Medical Center, somebody's on call on July 4th. That's how it works. Be prepared. Do not assume you have holidays or weekends off, okay? That's a huge assumption. I always have a third year who comes to me, it's my fifth cousin twice removed's wedding next weekend. This is day one, and I need Saturday off. Well, we run a Saturday clinic, or I should say we used to before COVID, in our operation. How can you assume you were going to be off? Do you see what I'm saying? This is medicine. We work, we go to work, right? So, that doesn't mean you shouldn't go to family events and whatever, again, God willing, this pandemic goes away, but don't assume, right? And if you have something about, contact the site way before and get permission. I have students all the time, they've already booked their flight, they've got all of that booked, and then they come to me and say, I need the next Thursday and Friday off, no. But I just booked my reservation. I paid my plane. No, who said you could have off? I don't care. So it's not that we're cruel or harsh. This is called big boy and girl time, right? You can't just decide you're going to go do that. We depend on you. Believe it or not, we depend upon you to be with us, to provide the care that we give to the patients we're privileged to care for. Certainly on inpatient rotations. So that's my biggest advice, okay? And every day you have to be enthusiastic, ask a lot of questions. The only way we know what you're thinking is if you ask questions. Some of you guys are by nature, and you may not think this of me, but I'm an introvert by nature. I am not an extrovert by nature. You may not think that, but I am not an extrovert. I had to learn to be extroverted in this environment. If you are, as we call, a wallflower, and you don't ask questions and you hang out in the back and you're kind of lost, the assumption by the residents and the attendings you're working with is you don't care and you're done. That's it. That's what they think. I just say it as it is, guys, okay? Which is not the case, right? The person who doesn't ask a lot of questions could be totally engaged, right? Totally wanting to learn. The best student there ever was. But unfortunately, it gets back to what we said earlier. People make assumptions about you, right? So you've got to learn to be vocal in uncomfortable situations, notably when you're the least knowledgeable person in that team, okay? Because that's how you stand out. Because you already know who your colleagues are that are very vocal, right? They don't have a problem. They just say it. They just say it. They get noticed. They get noticed because they're loud. So those of you who are more introverted, and introverted is not a negative word. That is not, it's assumed to be a negative word. That's not true. It's just those types of people have to be more extroverted when they're on their clinical rotations.
Mhm.
That actually led into I think you kind of answered the question I was about to ask, but are there any particular skills that students can work on now if they're specifically interested in going into family medicine?
So, well, okay. So honestly, Raj, the answer to that is there aren't any specific skills that one as a second, almost third year student, or even a fourth year needs to work on, focus to any discipline. That's not what you're supposed to be doing yet, okay? Again, your job right now is to come out of medical school with the breadth of skills that we are trying to teach you, okay? In as competent a way as possible. I would never want a second or third year student who wants to be a dermatologist to focus on doing shave biopsies as a third year student. That's not going to help you, okay? Your job right now is to garner as much knowledge from these first 2 years as you can, actively participate in our courses like PCM, where we're trying to grow your clinical skills, your ability notably to present cases. As I've told Daniel, the most important thing you have to come away with from your third year of medical school is the ability to succinctly, in an organized and concise way, present a case, right? That is your job as a third year medical student, okay? So these much larger skills that every physician has to know, regardless of specialty, is what you should be focused on now. Knowing your physical exam, right? Again, for your CSEs that'll be coming up, you have to know the physical exam for all of the systems you have had. that is a wonderful review, so that when you go out as a third year and I say, Raj, I want you to go examine that dude's heart, you know exactly what you're doing, all right? So it really isn't about specific skills based upon a discipline you're interested in. We're not looking for that yet. Right now, we're looking for a global skill set that we expect every third year student to have, which is, again, an ability to go in and interview a patient and come out with a concise case presentation, decent physical exam skills that we're still going to work on when you are a third year student, right? Knowing where to go to look stuff up. We don't expect you to know everything by any sense of the imagination, but I do expect you to get on your iPhone and go on up to date, right? Or whatever, to look stuff up, knowing how to do that in an efficient way. That's what we're looking for right now. Does that help? I hope that helps.
Absolutely.
Where do you see changes in medicine moving over the next 5, 10, 15 years?
Yeah, well, I tell you what, the biggest thing, Daniel, is we're not going to give up telemedicine. I mean, I'm doing a bunch of that right now with the coronavirus. We're never going to walk away from that. You guys are going to, day one, you're going to do telemedicine with your patients right away. Patients love it. You know, it's quick, it's efficient. So I see us engaging way more of that as we go forward. Not only, you know, and also deploying a lot more technology where down the road, I'll be able to do more physical exam over the computer, much like we're talking right now. I see that evolving because patients love it. They absolutely love telemedicine. So technology, telemedicine, less in-person, believe it or not, less in-person engagement with our patients. I see a lot more of that as we go down the road. The other thing I see is, unfortunately, physicians are going to be more and more, as we already kind of are, employed by people who are not physicians. And I say that in a negative way. Unfortunately, guys, we are becoming more and more employees of the business types, right? So your performance is going to be much like it is at, you guys know, whenever you go get your oil changed, right? The guy who did the work on your car or the service representative, please give me 5 stars, right? Don't they always tell you that the minute you walk out, right? Please, we did a great job. Please give me 5 stars. Well, unfortunately, that's how it is going to be for physicians. Your patients are going to rate you, and your income is going to be attached to that. That's also a little disparaging to me, because we're not, you know, that's not what we do. You know, we can't always tell people what they want to hear. We have to tell them what is in their better interest. But that's the way it is, guys. You're going to be more customer service based in terms of your reimbursement, whether an employer keeps you as a practicing physician. So that's something you're going to have to get used to.
I imagine something that would be really cool if it ever becomes an invention.
Right.
When you said there's going to be more telemedicine and ways to do physical exams from far, I imagine like a little connector to your iPhone with a stethoscope end on it, or maybe you could hear the end of the patient's heartbeat or lungs or something.
Totally, Dan. I mean, we can do EKGs now on your iPhone, right? They're not great yet, but we can do that. You need to be the guy who invents that, David. That's the key. You got to invent that little tiny stethoscope that the patient puts on their iPhone, it's going to happen. There's no doubt about it. You guys, no matter what specialty you go into, you're going to be interviewing and at some point truly examining people from far away. That day will come. There's no doubt about it.
Do you think that will help patients that maybe live in rural areas, maybe even countries where somehow they're lucky enough to have the internet, but they have to drive 200 miles to get to?
Absolutely. And I'm going to tell you though, like right here in Davie, right? The patients who love it when I do telemedicine with them are the patients who aren't that mobile, and they may live just a mile from our clinic, right? But my patient who has congestive heart failure and COPD, and maybe their BMI is 40 and they're not very mobile, they love doing telemedicine with me because it's so convenient for them. So for sure, in people that live in more rural areas, but definitely in our urban areas, because we have so many people that are immobile. But let me give you another example. The other patient who loves it is the mom who's got 3 kids who are home, by the way, doing their schooling right now, right? Because they're learning online, who can't break away from them because, they would go crazy if she left them. I can do a quick visit with her while her kids are in the other room. And it works really well for her. So you don't even have to envision, these tremendous, distance issues, right? It's just convenience. People love convenience.
I have 2 things to follow up on that. One, have you, obviously, I don't want, like with HIPAA, you have to be careful. So however you want to answer this, go for it. But have you came across any chief complaints or complaints that you did not feel adequately prepared to do a telemedicine call? Like you kind of wish to really do a physical exam on that patient?
Oh my God, yes. All the time, Daniel. Yes. I mean, I've had people, so yeah, I mean, there are still things that I need to examine. So, I mean, I had a lady that, I've had some very interesting things actually. So, the acuity on our screen still isn't the best, at least my screen here. So skin rashes, right? Now you would think skin rashes would be something that are very, very amenable to telemedicine. But, I got a lady on her iPhone 8 with the Walmart, true story. The patient was in Walmart on her iPhone.
Wow.
Lifted up her dress in Walmart, which still blows my mind till today, to show me her rash on her leg. Okay. Now, her iPhone must have been like an iPhone 8 or 7, nothing bad, just not the most recent technology. She's on the Walmart Wi-Fi and she's walking and shopping. A little hard to kind of see what that was. You know what I'm saying? Not to mention, I'm like, you probably need to go in someplace private before you show me this, right? Mm-hmm. So, yeah, so that's just one example I have for you. Or I have a guy who's having, shortness of breath, multiple risk factors. And, I really need to hear his lungs. I really need to listen to his heart. Can't do that over this, right? So I'm like, Mr. Smith, you kind of need to go to the emergency room. And he was not very happy. He was like very upset that I couldn't, do more for him over this medium. I've had people driving while doing their telemedicine appointment with me. They are driving and they're talking to me. I'm like, this really isn't safe.
They warned us about that when they gave us kind of the presentation about what we could expect with our telehealth or telemedicine experiences. And I thought, no way people are actually going to do that. But I guess
I've had 2 patients driving on 95 while having their visit with me. And I said, ma'am, sir, I can't do this. This is not safe. And they get angry. I'm like, this is not safe. I cannot go on with this. I cannot be the person that is the reason why you get into an accident. And we had to end the visit.
That goes back to if you're going to be rated on your performance based on what patients think, that would be a big problem just alone with your pay right there, which is unfortunate that there's that collision of interest.
Right, because, as you can imagine, the number crunchers aren't really interested in that, right? They want to see volume. They want you to have volume. So why do people come back? Because they like you, right? Because you provide that service to them. And that's what I'm saying about how medicine, really shouldn't be that way. I mean, we can't always be the what's the word? We can't always be everything a patient wants of us, because we have to tell them the realities of things. But the reality, guys, is that we are now getting graded, and that's going to be your contracts, your reimbursement, everything is going to be based on that. It is what it is. You have to embrace it. Yep. It's not going to go away. We're not going to go back. And your boss is not going to be a physician. Your boss is going to be an MBA, right? Who is a number cruncher. That's who your boss is going to be.
Thank you so much for joining us, Dr. De Gaetano.
Oh, you're very welcome. I really enjoyed this. I hope I wasn't too long-winded.
Not at all.
No, we had a blast.
We had a blast.
Good, good. And I'm always available if you want to do some type of a follow-on, or if you do present this and students have questions, I'm very happy to answer them at any time.
Hey guys, Tim here. I'm the producer of the show. So we originally did this interview last year, but in the meantime, we had to study for boards and other things in life got in the way. So, as a little bit of bonus content for this episode, we actually have Dan here talking to us about his experience rotating with Dr. De Gaetano. So, we just started our third year, started our rotations, and luckily enough, Dan had his with Dr. D. So, Dan, tell us a little bit about that. How was it?
Yeah, so 1 week before our clinical rotation start, I got the email that I was going to be rotating with Dr. De Gaetano, and I was extremely excited immediately. Working in his clinic was so much fun. I thought it was fun having him in PCM. You know, that PCM for us was during COVID, so it was actually online. But then I got the experience to actually be with him in his clinic in person, and he was such a phenomenal teacher. You wouldn't feel stupid. He would teach you in a way that would kind of bring you up a little bit. It was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it. It was a phenomenal first clinical rotation experience.
So, getting to meet Dr. D last year in PCM and then interviewing him, was it weird going into your rotation, like knowing him already, or was it more of a positive thing?
For me, I was just more excited because I knew that I know Dr. De Gaetano. I knew that he's been a good teacher. I was excited that I wasn't going into a stranger, although the rest of my rotations are probably going to be strangers, so that'll be fine. But it was almost like a safety net. And the way that his clinic works, there's residents there, and they're the Broward family medicine residents, and they were phenomenal. You got to work with a different resident every day, so you got to see so many different styles of how these doctors practice medicine. You learn so much in such a short time. The residents were phenomenal. Each one, it's kind of like during the whole day, the attitude in the clinic was so upbeat and so happy. It's like you were hanging out with your friends, but learning medicine at the same time. The perfect learning environment, the perfect work environment. If anyone has the opportunity in the future to go into Dr. De Gaetano's clinic, I highly recommend it.
Well, that sounds like the dream. Thanks for the extra insight, Dan.
Yeah, there's one time, like I said, if you didn't know something, Dr. De Gaetano didn't rip you apart. He was supportive and taught you. So one time there was a patient who came in with, I don't know, probably like an earache or a stopped up nose or something. And afterwards, he asked me what I found on the HEENT exam. And I forgot to do the HENT exam. And so he says, yeah, so what were your findings on HENT? And I just go, I didn't do it. And he goes, well, you should have. I was like, yeah, I should have. So he didn't bring me down or rip me apart, but now I know I'll never forget to do the HENT exam again. So it was a good experience.
The Medical Muse is produced by Timothy Crowe. Your hosts are Daniel Epstein and Raj Kavadi. Social media coordinator, Anja Vonderausten. Music on the show by Foxy Music. Join us next episode where we talk with Dr. Carissa Champion, a general surgery resident, lawyer, and surgical communications fellow on Grey's Anatomy. Lastly, we'd love to connect with you. Follow our Instagram at @the_medical_muse or on Twitter @medicalmusepod. See you next time.